What up, and welcome to Wing and a Prayer Podcast, a show about Seattle Mariner baseball. I am your host, Andy Wing. Thank you to all that have listened, downloaded, and shared with your friends and your family. Again, you can find the show in most places you're going to find your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and even Audible. You can also find the show on Instagram at Wing and a Prayer Podcast. I'm going to be posting some short reaction videos there, maybe snips of the show. It's new, but I'm going to be posting content there very soon, so check it out if you can. Now, it's been a minute since we've published an episode, so thank you for your patience with me. This last month has been extremely busy with baseball, softball, with my kids, but we're back at it again, producing our 6th episode already. And hopefully the busyness is going to be dying down here soon and going to get back to posting regular content for you all. So thank you again for listening. Let's get the show on the road. On today's show, we are going to start off with some high-level thoughts about the team and where they're at right now. And then we're going to go into news and notes with some injury news as well as a trade they made literally today. And then we're going to look at the first place Mariners. Yes, that's right. I said the first place Seattle Mariners in the month of May. How is it working so early? Well, we're going to talk about that. And then riding the hot hand. We're going to talk about some players who have been hot and been carrying this team. And then big wins. We all need some big wins to carry momentum and help boost us over the top. And so we're going to look at some big wins the Mariners have had recently that's really helping them out. And then some minor league stars, the stars of the future that were in spring training we talked about early on. We're going to check in on them. How are they doing? What's been going on? And then we're going to close it out with a good old Andy's rant. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for following along. And let's get right to it. Well, y'all, the Mariners are in first place, and although it's been a little while since I've been on the mic with you all, but I'm glad to be back, excited to talk Mariner baseball again, and I'm excited. They're in first place, 3 games up over the Texas Rangers, and it seems like everybody else in the division is just faltering, but hey, the Mariners will take it. They're 5 games over 500. We're going to talk a lot more about this later on, but right now I'm just feeling great about what the team's doing. The pitching staff has been great. Even with them not doing as well lately, the offense has just stepped in and carried them a bit more, which is what's needed. And so I'm just excited where things are at right now, and I'm excited of kind of what's to come and some things coming together to propel them forward. And to be in first place in the month of May is kind of a rare thing. The last time at this point in the season they were in first place, the last time it was in 2003. So that doesn't tell you something. This team is continuously over the last 20 years been a slow starter and then picking it up later. And it's nice to see them actually like overcoming that and winning some games early on to not dig themselves such a hole, because you can't always rely on that 14-game winning streak later on. So anyway, I'm excited about where things are at. I'm excited where it's going. Need some things to still happen. Need some more from players that we'll talk about. But right now, that's how I'm feeling right now. In news and notes, starting off with injury news, J.P. Crawford is back. He was activated from the injury list on 5/20 after injuring his oblique. He missed nearly 4 weeks from the injury, and honestly, what it meant was backup role players like Dylan Moore covering for him in shortstop. And man, what has Dylan Moore done in the time where J.P. Crawford's been gone? Has he been terrible? Well, stay tuned for later in the show, and we are going to talk a lot about that. But either way, J.P. Crawford is back, and I think he's going to come back better than ever, and it's going to help other players fill in roles, and this team's just going to get better offensively with him back in the lineup. And so I'm excited to have him back. It's well needed, and it was kind of scary. In his last start in Tacoma, he got hit with the ball in his hand from a pitch, and whoo, man, we all thought he was going to be out a lot longer. So it's nice to see him only miss a couple more games. Now he's back with the team in New York. Matt Brash. Well, we all knew Matt Brash was going to be out for quite a while this season, but he had been rehabbing his elbow injury from the spring, and we all kind of thought he was going to work his way back. He had a couple setbacks, but it all just sudden got announced that he ended up having Tommy John surgery, and he'll be out till mid-2025. So Wasn't really expecting him to come back anytime soon, but we thought we'd get him back this year, and the bullpen is short on leverage arms right now, and we're just hoping some way, somehow we could have him back. So but that's gone. It's done. He won't be back till mid-2025 at the best. So that's a 12-month injury. But we just, wish the best of luck to him, but the team's got to figure something else out now that he's out. So Gregory Santos is still injured. He may be in June, but that timetable keeps getting pushed out. You really have Ryan Stanek and Andres Munoz as leverage arms in the bullpen for tight situations, and they need another one. And so it's never become more apparent, especially the way they've been pitching lately. So that's the implications of that injury that they're going to have to figure out. Jorge Polanco missed 6 straight games with knee soreness. He missed a lot of games last year with a similar injury, but it doesn't seem like he'll need the IL. And he actually was back in the lineup today playing against the Yankees. So good to see him back in the lineup. Glad to see that he's not out for a long time, but he really needs to get his bat going to honestly justify him playing in the field every day. Sam Haggerty, backup outfielder, utility guy, played well for the Mariners. Sent back down to AAA this year, but in a game this year, making a play near the fence, he ended up rupturing his Achilles on that play, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So that's really sad for Sam. He is a depth piece. If there's an injury in the outfield, some guy you can bring up, get on base, put the ball in play. So it's really sad to see him be out for the season, blow to the depth, and feel bad for that guy. Taylor Saucedo. So he was injured on a hyperextension in a game on May 7th. But he'll be back pretty soon. But I don't know if you all saw his reaction video when the Mariners came back and beat the Yankees on the first game of the series. He is the fan that all of us wish we could be. He's at home gaming on Stitch, and he's watching the game and to see them come back, and he's just going nuts, talking about, that's why you play 9 innings. That's why you play 9 innings, not 5, not 6, not 3, not 2. Anyway, go watch it. Look it up on Twitter. The Mariners page has shared it. It's all over if you just look for it. But he is great. And I'm just it makes me want to go I don't watch Twitch. I don't watch gamers, but I want to go watch him now as he watches games just to see his reaction and as he rehabs his injury. Anyway, but Taylor Saucedo, come back strong. But keep doing the stuff online, man. It is great. I love watching it. And just keep being you. And you're the fan I wish I could be sometimes. Moving on to some news, transactions with the team. Well, guess what? We have a trade. Yes, we have a trade. And at this point in the season, some teams are starting to realize they're maybe out of it and looking at maybe shopping some of their best players. But in this situation, it was a team that just had plentiful of pitching, had a lot of good arms, and just had to make a tough decision, and the Mariners are the benefactors of it. So the Mariners made a trade for relief pitcher Mike Baumann from the Baltimore Orioles, and they also got back catcher Michael Perez was in their AAA farm system, and we sent back our AAA catcher Blake Hunt. So who is Mike Baumann? Well, Mike Baumann's been a starter. It's been his whole career in the Orioles system. He's been a starter that most of that time, but this year he was sent to the bullpen and told that's where you're going to stay, and we need you to commit to that role. He has fared pretty well in that role. In 17 appearances, he has a 3.44 ERA. Now, that's just a simple look, but it's not terrible. But so you ask yourself, why was he DFA'd? That's a pretty good numbers. He's not killing his team. He's obviously made a lot of appearances where he's helped his team. Well, it just comes down to the Orioles having too many good pitchers. And we just saw the Mariners play the Orioles, and they did not match up well at all. And they've got good pitching up and down the team and the roster. And when a player came back from injury, the Orioles had to make a decision. Well, Mike Baumann was out of AAA minor league options, and so they had to DFA him. And that was the only thing they could really do. They just had too many players on their roster that would qualify to make the team. And so the Mariners are the benefactors of that. They send basically their AAA catcher for their AAA catcher, get Mike in return, which gives us, the Mariners, depth in their bullpen, which is what they need. He may not be the elite back-end guy, but it gives more depth, which you can never have too much pitching depth. And so I'm excited about this. It's not the greatest biggest move, biggest splash ever, but it's something that'll help them out because they need depth because injuries happen and their bullpen's already a little fragile right now. So bring this guy in will be a big asset. Well, here we are right at the 50-game mark in the season for the Seattle Mariners, and guess what? They are in first place. Sometimes this season, the way it's gone, the way they've played their games, it is shocking they're in first place. Now they've taken advantage of the division being down this year, but hey, they are above 500. They're in first place. They're winning some games they should. Sometimes they're getting beat, but that's the name of the game of baseball. And right now, with everything that's gone wrong with their offense and their pitching being great 1 minute and then the bullpen starting to crack, I couldn't be happier where they're at. They are right about where I think they should be based on the way they've played, and they probably should have lost a few more games than they have already. And their offense has been horrible. Julio's only hit 2 home runs. He's not been the same Julio we expect, and yet they're in first place. And guess what? They lost the last 2 games against the Yankees after 2 great wins. They are under 500 on their road trip so far against 2 elite teams, and they're 3 games ahead, and they've actually gained in the division. Thank goodness the Rangers got swept by the red-hot Phillies, and the rest of the division is up and down and mostly down. So we'll take advantage of it. Hey, you got to take advantage of those moments. When the division's down, you got to take advantage and be able to come out on top. So they're in first place, and you might be asking yourself, how are they there? I know they've won some games, but how are they really doing it? Well, there's a game I like to play. I like to play a little blackjack every once in a while, and I've often said that you win in blackjack based on how you do in your double downs and your splits. Well, in baseball, it's kind of like that in the sense of when you win 1-run games and extra inning games, and you're really good in those situations, then your record tends to be better. Last year, they were a game under 500 at 25-26 in 1-run games, and when they've played better and when they went to the playoffs, they were really good in 1-run games. Well, this year so far, they're 9-4 in 1-run games. That is amazing. They were 5 games over 500 going into yesterday, and they've lost 2 in a row now, so they're back to 3. But still, in 1-run games, 9-4. And that 5 games up was that difference. And so winning those close games, having an elite closer is the difference. And then extra inning games, they're 2-1 so far. Last year, they were 6-14. The year before, they killed it in extra inning games, and this year 2-1. So that's been a big bonus so far. They're not losing those extra inning games. They haven't been in a lot of extra inning games. They're winning more in 1-run style rather than letting go to extra innings too, which is a great thing. So winning the close games, that's the difference. If you're losing close games, just like in football, how many teams lose 10 games a year? And hey, there's that team that lost 10 games, or 11, but they only lost by 6.5 points a game or 4.6. And it's like they were just there every single game. Well, that's like losing by 1 run all the time. You're almost there, but you're so far away at the same time. So when you're winning those games, it helps your record. You maybe win that series, that rubber match that you really need to pull off. Maybe win that 3rd out of 4 games or split the series when you're not playing that well. Those is when it comes into play. Another area I thought was super interesting to look at for kind of the games and some of the stats inside of it was blowout games. So anytime a game, there's a score differential of 5+ runs, that's considered a blowout. Well, I have watched a lot of the games and I pay attention to it, obviously. I would think that their record is pretty poor in blowouts because I can think of at least 2 games where Josh Rojas has come and pitched because they were down by so much. Well, guess what their record is on 5+ run differentials? They're 7-5. I was blown away with that because I would have thought for sure they'd be 4-8 in those matchups. But they have had some games lately where they've blown opponents out. So the fact that they beat 7 people by 5+ runs, I had to double check it. But it's legit. It's legit. Another aspect that I thought was interesting, and this is something we've been digging into and spending a lot of time on, was the 10-game spans. I've said before that the season is broken up into 16 10-game segments. Now, I was hoping to do an episode every 10 games or so, but life's gotten busy, and so here we are. But if you look back, their first 10-game span, they went 4-6. And I said, if they keep doing 4 and 6s, it's not going to be good. Next week, they went 6-4. Week after that, 21 through 30 game stretch, they went 7-3, had a fantastic week. Games 31 through 40, step back. They had another 4-6 week. But then these last 41 through 50, they went 6-4. Well, what does that tell you? Well, in those first 5 stretches, 3 weeks they've had winning weeks, and they lost 2. Well, that's a winning percentage. If you're winning those weeks, winning 3 and even had 2 losing weeks in there, over time, that's going to help your record out. What does that mean? That means they're winning series. Well, in that stretch, they have won a lot of series. And speaking of series, in their last 11 series, they're 8-2-1. And even though they just lost to the Orioles 2 out of 3 and then they split with the Yankees, I don't really care. I mean, the Orioles are an elite team. The Mariners aren't quite there yet. They could be if their offense picks it up, but they're clearly a better team. The Yankees, I mean, when you got Soto and Judge in the middle of that lineup and then Carlos Stanton, and he's hitting a little bit better this year than he has, that's a tough juggernaut to go through. And the fact that they split that series, and we'll get into those 2 wins they got a little bit later, but that's a good takeaway. That's a good takeaway that they can carry forward. But that's how they're gotten to this point too. In those 10 series, after they started off the year not being able to win a series, since then, of the 11 series they've faced, they're 8-2-1. And they've only swept 1 series, Cincinnati, at the beginning, but they've won 2 out of 3 against some really good teams. Kansas City, 2 out of 3. Atlanta, 2 out of 3. Arizona, 2 out of 3. And so they're doing it. They're knocking off teams that are tough, not just cake schedule. And their schedule will get easier, but this gauntlet, this road trip they were on, we all knew, if you looked at it, then we knew this road trip would be one of the tougher road trips of the year. The longest road trip of the year. They had to play 3 in Baltimore, 4 in New York, and now 3 in Washington. And if they win 2 out of 3, it's a 500 road trip, and I think anybody would take that. So winning series is the name of the game. And looking at the 10-game stretches, winning 3 out of 5 already, that's a good start. So this team will get better as the year goes on. I'm confident of it. And as long as they can stay healthy, now we know that. And now so far they've been pretty healthy, other than Brash and a couple of things. Those were things before the season started. But they need to keep winning series and just win 2 out of 3. You don't have to sweep a bunch of people. They keep winning 2 out of 3 for the most part. They'll be just fine. So let's talk about the pitching a little bit. They're in first place. Has the pitching helped them, hurt them? Well, they had an 18-game stretch from April 10th to April 30th that was unworldly. The team was 13-5 with 1.56 ERA and a 3.54 WAR in 18 games. WAR is a stat that I like, but I don't love. It's like the wins above replacement. But that pitching staff equated to 3.5 wins in an 18-game stretch above the average pitcher. That means, guys sometimes have 3 WARs over a whole season, and it's like, oh, you had a really good year. That staff, 3.5 WAR over an 18-game stretch. And so, the starters were 11-3 with a 1.44 ERA, 9.8 strikeouts a game, or per 9 innings. The bullpen was elite too. 2-2, 1.82 ERA, 10.22 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, everybody knew when that stretch was going on, this is unworldly. The starters hadn't given up more than 2 runs in 22 games. We knew that wasn't going to continue, but it went for as long as it could. So come May 1st, May 1st to the 20th, it's normalized a bit. The pitching staff's been 9-9 with a 4.38 ERA, so a bit higher. Everything regresses to the mean, but they've definitely had some rougher outings. The starters were 4-8 with a 4.06 ERA, 6.71 strikeouts per 9. And when the starters do worse, it puts more taxation on the bullpen, and the bullpen's seen it. They're 5-1, but with a 5.00 ERA and 8.8 strikeouts per 9. And I think it's interesting to note that during the hot stretch, the starters were 9.8 strikeouts per 9, and now they're down to 6.7, and the bullpen's down about 1.5 strikeouts per 9. And those are big outs in big situations a lot of times when you need a strikeout, and then they put the ball in play, and sometimes bad things happen. But the good news is the rotation is fully back. Brian Wu has pitched 3 starts, and I went to one of them, and he was so fun to watch live, and every single start, he has just been nails. Every time he comes to he's just so pinpoint accurate. His fastball isn't as fast as other guys, but his arm slot is deceiving, and it's hard to pick up. And then he's very accurate, and his off-speed pitches have gotten so much better, and his location has gotten so much better. He's hard to hit, and I'm so excited to have him back. I mean, he's like our number 5 starter, and he's been the most elite. So the starting staff is going to go through its ups and downs, but the full rotation's back, and the fact that you have somebody every day that you feel really good about and could go down and give you 7 shutout innings is pretty incredible. And they're going to have their ups and downs, and that's okay. Looking next at the offense. The offense in April didn't do well. 223 average, K rate at 28%, only 10% walk rate, 28 home runs, 26 doubles, 3.8 runs per game. So May was a little bit better, been a little bit better so far. 246 average up. K rate's gone down to 26, still not great. 7% walk rate, not as good. 21 home runs, 27 stolen base, 4 runs a game. Lately, it's been up and down. I mean, they're just inconsistent. So even though numbers have gotten a little bit better, they've been clubbing more home runs. They finally start hitting home runs. They're actually like 6th in the league in total home runs this year, which is wild. But they've been hitting the ball a little bit better, but they're just inconsistent. You never know if they're going to give you 6-7 runs. They're going to get shut out. Like today, I know it was a good pitcher, but it just seems like they didn't have a great plan. And that's what's frustrating in their offense. When they're not doing well, my eye says they just seem like they don't have a great approach or a plan. Like, hey, we know this pitcher's going to be really tough. We're going to try to get on base in this way or do that. And I know I'm probably simplifying it way too much, but it just seems like they don't have the greatest approach in the world. They got their new offensive coordinator, and I don't know. I just sometimes don't think it's paying off, but I could be wrong. But the offense needs to step it up more. They need to carry their pitching staff, because the pitching staff, like it has not been as good. And when they're not as good, their record's been, they're like 500 in May so far. So they had a pretty good April, and they're just kind of carrying that through even. And so their offense has to step up. Guys like Garver have got to come through. Polanco's got to come through. And you have some guys on the team that are playing hot, and they're getting more playing time, and we're going to talk about that next. Riding the hot hand. In this segment, we are going to be looking at players in the team that are just hot right now, and the team's relying on, helping them carry through maybe a tough stretch, helping them win some games. And so we're going to look at 3 players that are just in fuego right now, on fire, that are helping them carry through this. And it's not always the people we think it is. First up, Luke Raley. Yes, Luke Raley, the same Luke Raley that started the year off insanely slow, wasn't getting any playing time, was getting benched, and we're all wondering, why isn't he getting more playing time? And when he does play, he's striking out, and he's not playing well. Well, guess what? The month of May has been very good to Luke Raley. In the month of May alone, he's hitting .417 with 4 home runs, 3 doubles, 12 runs, 9 RBIs, and a 1.128 OPS. Yes, 1,100 OPS. He's only striking out 19% of the time. Not only that, but Luke Raley to me is extremely valuable in this lineup. He is a big 6'4", strong-looking dude, but that man can run. He can steal bases. I see him get infield hits. He can track down fly balls in the outfield. And with his success in May, Service has relied on him more. He's moved him up as high as 3rd in the lineup in the Tuesday game against the Yankees. And that was exciting to see, because the manager's like, hey, we got to play the guys who are carrying us right now and are hot. And that guy has been on fire. And so he's getting more playing time, and you can't bench him during this time. You cannot. But the funny thing is, in the Wednesday game against the left-handed pitcher Cortez, Luke Raley got benched. Why? Because he's a left-handed batter against a left-handed pitcher, and the analytics say that that's not a good matchup, and he needs to sit the bench. We need to bring in a righty off the bench who hasn't played a whole lot, because that's going to work. Well, did it work? No, it didn't. I know I'm not the manager. I don't know everything. They know more than I. I sometimes think these teams rely so heavily on the data that it blinds them at times to what's in front of them. Luke Raley is hitting over 400 in the month of May. The day before, they brought in a left-handed reliever to pitch to him. He hit a home run off that left-handed pitcher. Give him a shot. Keep him in the lineup. Do not take him out and then expect him to come in and pinch hit later in the game where he's going to strike out. Like, just keep him in the lineup and just see what happens, instead of just being so hell-bent on the data that says he's not good against the lefty, therefore we got to take him out. Like maybe that's when he's going to break through and change that. I don't know, but when you got a hot player, you got to ride him. And so they have been a little bit more, but sometimes they fall back on those analytics, and analytics are important, but there's a balance to it. And I know I'm sounding like my rant, but I'm just a little peeved at that situation. Either way, Luke Raley needs to play every single day while he's on fire and take advantage of it. And until he cools off, then maybe you move the lineups around a little bit, but he needs to play every single day. Next up, Dylan Moore. Oh, I have been waiting to talk about this as I prepped for this episode and thinking about it a lot. I had a conversation with a friend of mine when I was on a trip, you know who you are, talking specifically about Dylan Moore and how the Mariners have been awful, partly because a player like Dylan Moore is playing 70% of the games, and there's no reason he should be, and you're not a good team. We had a good discussion about this, and I basically said I agreed. I basically said Dylan Moore needs to be your utility backup player. When he's like a utility backup player, it means you have sufficient players in position to play in the positions, and he can just fill in at different spots where there's an injury. Well, he's gotten playing time in the last couple of years, partly due to injuries, and he can play anywhere. And so when J.P. Crawford went down with the injury, he's getting a lot of playing time at shortstop. And they brought some guys up from AAA, but he is killing it in the month of May. Starting in May 8th through the 23rd, during that stretch, he's hitting .326. He's got an 1,100 OPS, 4 home runs, 5 doubles, 8 runs, 12 RBIs, 10% walk rate, and only an 18% strikeout rate, which is well below the team average. He's hitting for power. He hit 2 home runs in the Tuesday game against the Yankees, which helped propel them to a victory. And, you know, I saw a stat recently on the swing speed of the bat. And they're looking at that more closely because it kind of references like their hard hit rates and the exit velocities. And if you're swinging harder, like the average is 75 miles an hour. And they showed a graph of all these players, basically like the graph in one angle was their bat speed and then their percentage of barrels, like how often they square up the ball. And Dylan Moore was actually on the better end of that spectrum. He had a really high bat speed. I think it was right at 75 or a little bit above. And his barrel rate was like kind of towards the middle of the graph. And so he wasn't the best, but he wasn't like the worst either. And so it kind of makes sense why he's playing well. He swings the bat really hard and he's making really good contact. And we're seeing that. Even in the game today, he was 0 for 2, but he walked twice, got on base. He's fighting to get on base and helping his team. I don't know if this is going to continue all season, but right now he needs to play every day, and you got to find other plays. Put him in left field, put him at second base. I don't care. And guess what? They brought Polanco back on the Wednesday game, and then against the right-handed pitcher today, they sat him and put Dylan Moore, the right-handed bat, against it. So maybe Scott Service even realized on Wednesday, yeah, we probably shouldn't have sat Luke Raley because that didn't work out very well. So, hey, we're going to put Dylan Moore against the right-handed batter, or the right-handed pitcher in the next day. And, you know, he got on base twice. So he's got to play every day. That's riding the hot hand. If you got a hot player, you need to play him every day. I think Scott is doing that more. He needs to keep it up. And the last one on my riding the hot hand player list is Bryan Woo. I already talked about Bryan Woo a little bit because I got a little excited and ahead of myself. But I'm just so gosh darn fired up about what Bryan Woo is doing so far. And he's 2-0 with a 0.57 ERA, 0.5 whip, which is walks and hits per innings pitched. Anytime you're at 1 or under, you're elite. And he's only given up 1 run in 3 starts, 15 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 2 walks, and 15 strikeouts. Like I said before, pinpoint precision. And earlier when I said his fastball isn't as fast as others, I wasn't meaning he's throwing 91 miles an hour. His average fastball is actually at 95, and he can hit 96, 97. But it seems like consistently he's a little bit lower than like what Logan Gilbert can get to, what the other guys can get in the upper 90s, 98, 99. And he's like 95, 96. But his accuracy is on point, and his arm slot's tough. It just seems like it jumps on the hitters faster. And sometimes in baseball, perception's reality. If the ball looks like it's coming out faster, that goes a long way. So again, I'm excited to have him back in the rotation. I'm excited what it's going to do for the team. And now I'm going to get excited for every time he pitches to see what he's going to do. And he's been the stopper lately, the way the rest of the pitchers been going. And so it's a huge win to get him back in the lineup. And, in pitching, you can't really ride the hot hand, but he's just been hot and I want to focus on him. I really hope the next time I put out one of these episodes that the hot hand segment is going to feature Julio Rodriguez. Julio got bumped down to 6th in the order today, and I actually like that move. Takes a little bit of pressure off of him, and hopefully he just gets things going. I mean, he's getting a lot of singles. It's not like he's hitting for a terrible average, but he's just not hitting for extra base hits, and when you're at his caliber kind of player, he needs to slug the ball, hit the ball into the gap, hit the ball over the fence, and he just isn't doing it. He's hitting a lot of ground balls. When a player has got a decent average, but they fly out and you're kind of excited about it because it means they got the ball in the air. That's kind of the way the season's going for Julio. But either way, I hope next time I do this, I'm going to make a bold prediction that next time I do an episode, I'm going to feature Julio in the Riding the Hot Hand segment. And if I'm wrong, I'll call myself out. Big wins. The team needs big wins throughout the year, and sometimes we could look back on a season and think that was a turning point in the season, or that is what helped propel them over the top. Now, this road trip they're on is the toughest road trip of the year. It's the longest road trip of the year. 2 of the 3 teams they faced are one of the top 2 teams. Both could be World Series contenders. It probably will be World Series contenders when it's all said and done. First 3 against the Baltimore Orioles. They lost 2 out of 3 too. And then 4 in New York and 3 in Washington. They just wrapped up their 4-game series with the Yankees, and the first 2 games of that series were excellent. They're going into New York. New York is the number 1 team in the American League, first place in the AL East. They have an absolute juggernaut of a lineup with Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, and Anthony Rizzo in the middle of that lineup. Plus, Anthony Volpe's a dangerous hitter, and they just don't have a lot of easy outs in that lineup with a ton of power. They haven't lost back-to-back games at home. Their pitching staff is just dynamite right now, rivaling the Mariners pitching staff without Garrett Cole as well. And so they go in there Monday night, game 1, and of course they get down early. They go down 4-0, and they're getting just mowed down by Marcus Stroman. First 7 innings, just 1-2-3, 1-2-3, not putting up much of a fight at all. The 8th inning comes around, and Dom Canzone finally gets into him and gets an 8th inning home run. Hey, we're on the board. We're only down 3. We only got 1 inning to go, and guess what? You get to face the best closer in the league, Clay Holmes. Holmes this year has not given up an earned run all season long. He has just been dominant from the start. I honestly didn't know much about this guy until he came in, then looked him up, obviously looked at all his information and his stats. And just impressive to see. And his stuff was equally impressive. High 90s, hits the corner, great off-speed stuff. But the Mariners got to him. They scored 4 times in the top of the 9th inning to take a 5-4 lead. And they did it without hitting the ball hard at all. They didn't hit a 3-run homer. They didn't hit a bunch of doubles. They got infield singles starting off with Julio and Luke Raley. Got a walk in there too. And then a soft RBI single by Mitch Haniger. One of the hardest hit balls was the one Dom Canzone just got underneath just enough to hit for a sacrifice fly that sent Juan Soto to the track in right field. That would have been a grand slam, but in the end, it's a sacrifice fly. And then Ty France, as the game was tied after that, hits an RBI ground ball single to right field, and the Mariners take the lead. And I just absolutely love that they played small ball and got infield singles and sac flies and got a walk, and then hit a couple soft base hits into the outfield. And that's how they scored all their runs. And that's how they beat the pitcher. Because I'm sure that pitcher's thinking oh my gosh, I literally got just bad ball hit to death. I didn't give up a major, it wasn't hard hits or anything like that. But I just love it. I mean, they needed a win like this. An ugly game for 7 innings, 2 great innings, but that's why you play the whole game. Taylor Saucedo's rant about you play every inning is just perfect, because that's why you do, because you never know. I mean, Mariners have lost games like this where they're up 3 runs in the 9th inning and they lose it. And so to win a game like this in New York, the first game of the series, set the tone, go get a win when you dead to rights. You were dead. And they go out and win that game. That was a great game. I didn't even get to watch it. I had to go watch it after the fact because my kids had a softball game. And so I came home, rewound, watched the 8th and ninth inning, and it was still just as sweet. So Tuesday night, the next evening after that great win, they play again, trying to get the first 2 games of this series. And if they could, that would be huge. And so they start the game off, and Dylan Moore gets into a 2-run home run early in the game in the 3rd inning. And that's all they get for a while. But in the 7th inning, they get 2 more runs. Ty France starts the innings off with a solo shot to left. That was just a beautiful swing. And then Dylan Moore gets an RBI single to knock in another run. They're up 4-0. This is the game Brian Wu pitches, and he is lights out. He shuts him out through 6 innings. They bring in the bullpen, and Trent Thornton comes in the game and proceeds to give up a 3-run home run. Game's 4-3. Well, in the 8th inning, Luke Raley comes up, smacks a home run to right field, 5-3. And then guess what? Dylan Moore comes up in the 9th inning with another opportunity and smacks a home run to right field. Second home run of the day, 6-3. And that's your final score, 6-3. The Mariners win it. So they win the first 2 games of the series. First team to beat the Yankees back-to-back days in their ballpark this season, which is a really good sign. Great couple of games that you can look back on and say, hey, we got 2 tough games in New York. And they did lose the next 2, but New York's a great team as well. And they are trying to win just like the Mariners are. They have great pitching and great offense. And Aaron Judge is a monster. And he seems to devour Mariners pitching. And he did so again. And Giancarlo Stanton got a home run. And Soto is just a nightmare to get out. And they got him out a bunch. But you can't hold him down forever. So they lost the last 2. It's just going to happen, people. It's okay. They're going to go to Washington now. If they can win 2 out of 3, it's a 500 road trip, and they can offset all of this. But they get those first 2 wins; those are huge wins, and they will build off that. And I think they're going to carry them forward and help their offense out, and even help their pitching staff. Next up, we're going to look at some minor league standout players up till now. We focus so much on the major league team that I thought it'd be good to go back and look at some players that have some promise for the future. If you remember back early on in the episodes, I did talk when they were in spring training about some up-and-coming players for the future that were making an impact in spring, and just kind of gave you my thoughts and opinions then. So let's check back in on them. How are they doing? So we're going to look at 4 players. We're going to look at Colt Emerson, Tyler Locklear, Harry Ford, and Cole Young. Colt Emerson. So Colt started the year at Single A, the Modesto Nuts. He's played 19 games so far. He's hitting .271, 4 doubles, couple home runs, 14 RBIs, 855 OPS. The downside for him is he was recently injured. He had a slight fracture in his foot. He's going to miss at least a month. He had been playing fairly well, so it's disappointing to see him injured, but I'm sure after about a month he'll be able to come back. And I'd really like to see him continue his play, get some power, work on his glove at shortstop. He's had 6 errors and 72 chances for a .917 fielding percentage. Not great at all, but small sample size, so only 17 games. So hopefully he'll get some more opportunity this year and really build, and maybe he even get promoted into the next level. But that's what's going on with Colt Emerson. Tyler Locklear. Now, Tyler made a big splash in spring training, hitting bombs all over the place, hitting the ball hard, put up great numbers. He started the season in Double-A Arkansas. He's played 38 games so far. He's hitting .295. He's got 12 doubles, 7 home runs, 24 RBIs with a .939 OPS. He is crushing the ball. I follow the Mariners, like minor league teams, all the minor league teams, and some minor league content on Twitter or X now. And I see all the time, like Locklear with another home run and Locklear with a double into the gap. So I could see, I heard somebody talk about this, and I actually agree. I could see the Mariners, as the year goes on, if they're looking for a bat, they may give him a shot. He's only in Double-A, but hey, Julio jumped from Double-A to the big leagues. They're doing it more and more, taking guys from Double-A, not just making them sit in Triple-A. And he's crushing the ball at every level, and he is performing at a high rate, and he brings power. So I they could later in the year, if there's an injury or just something, they maybe would give him a shot, especially if they decide not to go trade for a big bat in the market to help their lineup out. Maybe they look inward and maybe they give him a shot. But he's playing great at AA. I wouldn't be surprised if he's at AAA very soon. Not at all. That's what's going on with Tyler Locklear. Harry Ford. Harry Ford also started his season at AA Arkansas. He's played in 37 games. He's hitting .275, 10 doubles, 5 home runs, 17 RBIs, 911 OPS. Harry's the catcher of the future, and he's got significant promise. But with Cal Raleigh in the way, he's not really going to get much playing time. But he's got to develop more in the minor leagues. But he has hit every level he's played at. He's got a great OPS. He hits for power. He gets on base. He's got a decent average, and he's developing as a catcher. And so, who knows with Cal Raleigh? If Cal Raleigh leaves down the road, Harry will be the catcher. If they can sign him long term, expect Harry to get traded because his value is high right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded him this season. We've heard rumors of Vlad Guerrero, something like that. You'd probably have to throw him in to get a package like that. We don't spend any time on rumors today, maybe in the future though. And last up, Cole Young. So Cole Young is one of the promising shortstops they drafted in the last couple of years. He started also in AA Arkansas. He's played in 35 games. He's hitting .255, 9 doubles, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, and a .727 OPS. He started off the year really cold. April, no home runs. His numbers were very low. But in May, he's had a lot better May. In May, he's hitting .283. He's got an .816 OPS, and all of his home runs, his 3 had been hit in May. So he's been playing a lot better. He's playing 24 games at shortstop, 11 games at second base. Second base, he's got 3 errors, no errors at second base. So he's fielding the ball okay and playing well. And if he keeps up the pace he has in May, maybe he'll get promoted this year. But either way, he's putting together a pretty decent season so far in Arkansas. And so he just needs to keep doing that. And what I overall would say is, if you notice anything about this list, they're all offensive players. The Mariners have done a great job of developing pitching. Their starting staff, other than Luis Castillo, are all homegrown, drafted, developed players. But in their farm system, they don't have a ton of great starting pitching talent that's just sitting there in the wings waiting. They have a couple guys, but they're showing the ability to develop offensive talent. Now, these guys have to make it to the big leagues and perform. I get that 100%. And the job's not done yet. But I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about these guys, what they're doing. Another guy is Ty Pete. I didn't put him on this list, but he's a guy to pay attention to. He's a guy that was drafted in the last couple seasons, and he is starting off well too. So we just need to keep an eye on these guys. I'll check back in on them periodically throughout the year, give you all updates of where they stand. And if some of these guys get opportunities, we'll dig into that too as well. But it's kind of interesting to kind of pay attention to what's going on with these players. I am actually going to go to an Aqua Sox game tomorrow night. First one I've ever been to. I've been to 100 Mariner games. I've never been to an Aqua Sox game. So I'm actually excited to kind of pour over the players and see if there's anybody worth note of looking into. So anyway, that's my view on minor league standout players. Look forward to digging into this more throughout the year. And finally on today's episode is Andy's rant. Last episode I didn't do one because I wasn't too upset about anything, but today I'm back with a rant. And honestly, it stems from a prior conversation within this episode, and it's analytics being too heavily weighed upon to make decisions in a baseball game. One of the reasons why I love baseball is it's really a game of probability. You do your best to put yourself in position to increase the probability of getting a hit, increase the probability of throwing a strike, increase the probability of throwing a quality strike, increase the probability that you'll make the defensive play, the throw, the catch, all of it. It's all probabilities and execution of it in the moment. And hitting a ball is one of the most defining probabilities within baseball. When the pitch is thrown and the batter swings, if they have a great approach, they swing at the right pitch, they're ready for it, they time it, they can do everything right. and you may even hit it hard, but it could be right at the third baseman. Or it could be just got underneath it and you pop it up to left field. And so it's about probabilities and putting yourself in good position, and you just never know. Part of the reason somebody asked me, why'd you name your podcast Wing and a Prayer? Well, because baseball a lot of times is somewhat of a wing and a prayer. The Mariners season is on a wing and a prayer because you try to put yourself in good positions, get the right players, even when you're at bat, get the right situation to put yourself in a good position to win the game, the at bat, the pitch, whatever it is. But sometimes you're just kind of hoping, like maybe it'll happen. We don't really know. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe we're going to line out and get ground outs the whole game, and maybe we're going to hit balls into the gap, or maybe we're going to get some infield hits, a walk, and a sac fly, and we're going to score some runs. It's all about those probabilities and and the nuance of it, and how do you set yourself up, and what kind of players do you get? And the Mariners have weighed heavily on analytics to build lineups, to construct bullpens, and it has worked a lot. And I'm not discounting it. There is a great place for it. We've spent a lot of time on statistics and numbers on this show, and I love it. I love digging into the data. I love it. But when you weigh too heavily on analytics and you don't start a player like Luke Raley when against a left-handed pitcher when he needs to be in the lineup, and your gut tells you need to be in the lineup. And I think everything inside you knows he needs to be in the lineup, but the statistics tell you to not put him in the lineup. I think that's the problem. You're weighing too heavily on the data, and you don't that gut instinct, I feel like, is fading away from baseball. And I think that's what makes great leaders, great managers. Sometimes you have to look at a situation and make a decision with the information you have, your experience, everything feeding into it, and say, you know what, this is the right thing to do. You could go either way. You can make a case for either side, but I'm gonna say this because it just feels right. And so I hope that Scott Service and leadership think about that more and make those kind of decisions more, even when it goes against the numbers, because the numbers are great. They help you tell a story, but sometimes you got to be able to cut through that and make a decision. And that's what leaders do. When you're in leadership, you sometimes have to make tough decisions nobody else wants to make. And when you set that lineup card, you got to put the best people in the best position that are hitting the ball well, seeing the ball well. And so I hope Scott Service makes those decisions and is bold enough sometimes to say, yes, this analytics are great and they help us, but in this situation, I'm going against it. I'm going against the grain. I'm going to put him in the lineup anyway because I believe that gives us the best chance to win. And that's what, as fans, that's what we want, right? We understand there's numbers in this, and we look at the numbers, but sometimes you gotta move that aside and just say, this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do. So that's my rant for today. I just hope they lean less on it. They need to use it, but just when it seems right and you're going against the grain, just go against the grain every once in a while and make a decision that helps your team. And that concludes our episode today. Thank you, everyone who listened. This is Wing and a Prayer Podcast, a show about Seattle Mariner baseball. Again, you can find us on Apple Music, Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Thank you again for everyone who listened. Download that show for me. Share it with your friends. Let's keep growing this thing. Until next time.